Hey everyone, welcome to Scene by Scene. When we think of Bollywood, more often than not, this is the image that comes to our mind. Traditionally, the Hindi film industry has been an escapist experience. One where you forget all your problems and worries and witness larger than life actors in the superstar ecosystem. Despite the lack of sense, logic, or reason, we have got to agree that this style of cinema has entertained us for decades and in some ways continues to do so. But that's not where we are today. Bollywood now has transitioned to a more true to life and relatable sort of cinema. A parallel cinema that was earlier restricted and limited to the art house genre, catering to a niche audience rather than the masses. It is not that the movies like these were not made before. It is just that the general acceptance towards them wasn't there with the Indian audience. However, our audience has now grown mature and expects movies that are grounded in some sense, logic, and reason. So, how did we come so far? What prompted this change? To answer that, let's turn to a movie that, according to us, ushered a new wave of mainstream cinema with indie sensibilities. And so today, we'll try to figure out what makes Udaan so special. The movie tells the coming of age story of a teenager who struggles between life and his father. The debut director Vikramaditya Motwane sells us the story without using the mainstream larger than life formulas. He brought in a certain degree of realism that Bollywood was either not used to or at least had forgotten. The movie came during the resurgence of the Indian parallel cinema movement, which began in the 1940s and made the likes of Satyajit Ray famous. The parallel cinema movement came as a reaction against the mainstream, colourful, and musical films and saw its growth during the 70s and 80s. During this golden age, directors like Gulzar and Shyam Benegal pioneered the way by making content-based movies which were grounded in social realities. Soon, however, due to commercialization, it became unfeasible to produce movies like these. The glamour of the 90s further made sure that the movement was done for. It is the period when personalities took over the forefront and the audience flocked to the theatres only for the superstars. In the late 2000s, there was a renaissance of the parallel cinema as Bollywood witnessed a massive shift with the arrival of figures like Meera Nair, Dibakar Banerjee, Anurag Kashyap, Sujit Sarkar, Konkana Sen, and Motwane. Movies produced by these filmmakers reawakened the realist cinema, where the story summoned audience to the theatres and not the stars in it. With Udaan 2, it is a grounded storytelling that makes it a poster child of the modern realist cinema in Hindi film industry. It is the realism that even Aristotle defined as the backbone of any good work of art. In his work Poetics, the philosopher produced the theory of mimesis, according to which art must reflect life. He believed that as humans we begin to mime or imitate right since our childhood.
Disgraceful.
Therefore, art that imitates life allows a certain sense of recognition for the audience to feel empathy and connect with the protagonist. Udaan encapsulates the emotional conviction that imitates life. It connects us with the tension between Indian tradition and youth's yearning to fly free. Rohan's story as well pushes us to understand his circumstances, his plight, and the very reasons for it. Even if you haven't been through the exact experiences or turbulent relationship with your parents, you're still able to empathize and relate to the emotions that are captured in almost every scene. Motwane's filmmaking is able to guide the viewer's experience without relying on flashy or obvious stylistic hallmarks. He instead relies on subtlety. In cinema, subtlety is the clever way of communicating the story or the emotion without having to say anything, which makes everything seem more real and relatable. Take this scene for instance. Rohan's angst doesn't need exposition or dialogues for us to understand his emotions, as his frustration reaches its peak. The director doesn't even integrate a background score to elevate our feelings. He in fact uses silence to his advantage, where the audience has to feel and understand rather than being told. As we learn to feel and understand more, we tend to relate more. And Udaan pushes us to relate with Rohan's story through its setting and character arcs. This relatability factor is what propelled the parallel cinema and is also the underlying theme of Aristotle's theory. Udaan, powered by its subtlety, excels brilliantly on both the scales. But for any filmmaker or artist, there is only so much that can be conveyed via emotion or voiceless expressions. See, subtlety has its limits. A clever filmmaker, however, goes beyond these limits and uses their cinematic world to convey thoughts and emotions that are not restricted by words. Motwane laces his world with symbols and motifs that speak to us without the use of dialogues. He in fact creates a web of symbols that power each other and has an immediate effect on the viewer. Simply speaking, a symbol is a thing that carries a bigger idea. John Truby writes that symbols give you a hidden language that emotionally sways the audience. Just as matter is highly concentrated energy, a symbol is highly concentrated meaning. They carry a deeper meaning that works on the audience in a very sneaky but powerful way. Motwane incorporates them right from the names of the characters to the setting of the story to even objects surrounding the characters. Let's start with the names. All our main characters are given names that are true to their personalities. The name given to Ronit Roy character is based on the manifestation of Shiv in the Hindu mythology. Lord Bhairav is described as a god of punishment that holds a rod to punish sinners. Even its literal meaning, frightful, goes well with the character. The youngest member of the family, the kid, is named Arjun. The literal meaning of the name is white and pure, which is a fitting description for him as well. Now, the protagonist of the movie is most aptly called Rohan, as the word originates from the Sanskrit language where it means to ascend. The apt meaning also goes well with the title of the movie and its very theme, a young boy's quest to fly free. In any form of storytelling, the names contribute to the impression of the characters, their identity, and how we remember them. Just as equally important as the characters and their names is the setting in which the creator places them. Where the characters are placed always influences who they are. Udaan achieves this visual communication by the use of two cities, Shimla and Jamshedpur. The two settings represent the contrast and the sudden shift that occurs in Rohan's life. The naturesque green atmosphere of Shimla is poles apart from the gloomy industrial town of Jamshedpur. It creates the mood for how Rohan feels in both the cities and through him, the viewer too. As we see Rohan in both the settings, it becomes easier for us to understand his actions and the reasons for those actions. As the setting of Jamshedpur adds further conflict to the story, it justifies Rohan's behavior and gives a certain context to his emotions. These contrasting settings work as a grand symbol that envelop the entire story. However, Motwane also uses micro-scale symbols that represent a grander meaning and further add to the context. Out of the many spread throughout the story, let's dissect one of the most important ones. In the closing scenes, we see Rohan return the watch that he had received on his birthday.
उन्होंने बाबूजी को दिया और बाबूजी ने हमको, जब हम 18 के हुए तब। देखना इसी तरह चलती रहे।
The relay of the watch parallels the generational physical abuse that also takes place in the family.
हम ऐसी हरकत करते तो बाबूजी क्या करते हैं हमारे साथ? स्टील के साथ साथ हमारी हड्डी भी गला देते भट्टी में।
This scene gives us an insight on what shaped Bhairav's personality. So when Rohan walks away while rejecting the watch, he's also renouncing the traditions and belief that run in their family. Like a true symbol, the watch becomes a visual metaphor and carries subtext that conveys so much more as it appears the second time. John Ruby further writes that a symbol creates a resonance like ripples in a pond every time it appears. As you repeat the symbol, the ripples expand and reverberate in the minds of the audience, often without their being consciously aware of it. And a repetitive symbol in turn becomes a motive. On his first morning in Jamshedpur, Bhairav forces Rohan for an early morning run.
लेकिन मुझे रेस नहीं करनी है।
तुमको पूछा कोई?
This provides an exposition for both Rohan and the audience for what is to follow. Through this, we get to know Bhairav and we understand that this is his domain. And so Rohan will have to live here without any choice and against his will. This running sequence is played again and again until it becomes a routine that drains Rohan throughout. By taking the running symbol and turning it into a motive, Motwane externalizes the protagonist's change as it occurs in the story. Hence, when it arrives in the final scene, it feels that it is achieved, as it portrays so much more. This last chase is real. It has its consequences. And so, he gives it all. And so, he's set free. Another motive that underlines the whole film is the dichotomy between the dark and the light. Udaan is primarily a clash between two worlds, individual and authority. And so, the creators have used colors to convey ideas and themes that are contradictory in nature. This contradiction is externalized through the clothes that the characters wear and the ambience that they are in. Take Bhairav's clothing, who almost always dons a dark outfit while his brother Jimmy is dressed in full whites. These opposite attires are manifestation of their personalities. The creator also plays with our subconscious by forcing us to feel gloomy and hopeless by creating an ambience that amplifies Bhairav's personality. Every time he occupies the screen, we witness a dramatic change in the setting and atmosphere, and this scene portrays it the best. Notice that in the absence of Bhairav, there is an ample amount of sunlight and warmth in the scene. It automatically makes us feel secure and cheerful.
तुम हंसते क्यों नहीं हो? हाँ, अब देखो कितने अच्छे लग रहे हो.
However, as soon as he returns to the screen, we are no longer in the secure space. This play with the light and dark reinforces the theme of the movie and influences the emotions of the audience. The symbols of light and dark are turned into a motif at the end, where we see Rohan and Arjun progress towards light and hope, whereas Bhairav recedes into darkness and despair. The use of these motifs contribute to an overlying theme, a theme of suppression and rebellion, of authority and individuality, of being caged and flying free. While the themes carry the key or central idea, a motive is more of a means of embellishing, examining, or reinforcing these central ideas. It is the use of such motifs, symbols, and the themes represented by them that reveals the craft in Motwane's work. However, what makes the movie special beyond its craft is the feeling it leaves you with. The feeling that Udaan inspires brilliantly showcases the breadth of what's possible in Indian cinema. It is for that feeling that Udaan will always remain fresh and close to every viewer's heart. As for any young spirit, the want to fly free is a timeless and universal desire. Tell us in the comment section below what do you like most about Udaan, and let us know if there is any Bollywood movie you want us to talk about next. Please subscribe to our channel for more such analysis of cinema scene by scene. Until the next one.